surprisingly.
Robert H. Shields, Shields. I enlisted in the United States Army in 1943.
When and where?
Let's see. Let me see. I enlisted, yeah. Yeah, I enlisted in, I don't know, August, September 1943 at Detroit, Michigan.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Ferndale, Michigan in 1925.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Ferndale, Michigan, and for 10 years, and then the rest of the time until I was 18 in Detroit, and that's when I went to the Army.
Were you drafted or did you enlist in the military?
I enlisted.
At what age?
I was 17 when I enlisted.
And why did you choose to join that branch?
Well, I all through high school with the war going on and knowing how important it was that the United States be victorious, I thought the Army and to get into the action was the best way.
What plans did you give up to join the military?
None, actually, because that's what I was looking forward to as soon as I got out of high school.
What happened after you enlisted?
Went down to training at the infantry school at Fort Benning, Georgia. And after basic training there, was transferred to the 106th Division. And for the summer of 1944, we had extended training as a division. And then in September, we left for Europe as a division.
What was the training like?
Well, it was 2 weeks in camp and 2 weeks in the field. So it was rigorous, but was good training for all of us because it prepared us for battle in Europe.
Did you enter conflict right after completing training?
Well, it took a couple of months to get over to Europe and get the whole division together. We landed in England, and then in late in the year, October, I guess it was, we went to the English Channel and got on some channel boats and went across to France and climbed down the nettings into the small boats and landed in on the shore of France. And that took it was pouring down rain, and it was a miserable night, and everybody was wondering where their outfits were, and we were all hopefully trying to stay with our units. And actually, for a while there was a few small Navy boats docked there. This was in, let me see, where was it? I think it was near Marseille. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I could look it up, but that's all right. To get out of the rain and waiting for everything to get as organized as things can be when you're in a combat zone, I went and visited some of the sailors in these boats, and they were giving us coffee for about an hour or so. So that was a nice break. And then after that, we got on the trucks and headed into across France into across Luxembourg, and then all unloaded, and we were right at the German-French border where the Germans were 10 miles away and we were on the other hillside. And that's when we started our combat experience, and that went on through until the Battle of the Bulge, which was December of 1944, which was one of the biggest battles of the European War, and that was a devastating battle. The whole First Army was under attack by every German division, infantry and mechanized, that they could amass for a breakthrough. And so we were on a 26-mile front with our 3 regiments on line. Usually the regiments are 2 on line, 1 in reserve. But they figured, because the intelligence wasn't up to date, and they didn't realize that there was a massing of German troops, although we were very close to, we weren't very far from where the Germans were, and being in a mortar outfit, when you're up in the OP, that you can see and hear a lot of stuff going on. So we knew something was cooking, but then when they broke through, they pierced our line, and that's when that was really a tremendous battle. It was an artillery barrage for 14 hours, and it was many. In my outfit, there was probably 50% casualties, and but our regiment succeeded in a pullback, whereas the other 2 regiments had been double enveloped and captured. So from there on out, it was like this little group digging out Germans someplace, and they're attacking us in other places, and it was a very mixed up battle for until Christmas. And on Christmas Eve, we finally were able to consolidate what was left of the division and operated as a regimental combat team with another division. And there we attacked the Germans in this one small town on Christmas Eve, and finally broke through and cleared that area. And that was another lot of casualties. I remember spending 2 or 3 hours carrying the wounded off the field, trying to get them back to ambulances and makeshift stretchers. So it was quite a battle, and then the war went on until we got to the Rhine River, and that's when the bridges were bombed, were destroyed, and it took a while to get the flotilla boats over there so that we could move on across the river. But by that time, my division had pulled back into what they call the Forgotten Front, which was in southern France, and there was I don't know, a couple 100,000 German troops that had been isolated there but never captured. And so because we had suffered so many casualties, we went to that place and spent, and that was getting near the end, because D-Day was April 12th, I think it is. And so by that time, then we had, the war had ended and Germany was in the process of surrendering, and then we moved back to the Rhine River and spent all summer guarding thousands upon thousands of German PWs prisoners of war, they call it PWs. And we had huge camp where maybe 100,000 troops in there, and spread with, all surrounded by barbed wire that the engineers had put up. And so the German prisoners were in there, and we patrolled that area for most of the summer. And then I luckily got assigned a job with a 6-by truck, and we started discharging those prisoners wherever they were from. They grouped them, and then we'd load them onto the trucks, 6-bys they called them. That's what the name of the truck was, 6x6. So so we loaded these PWs in, and then we had the Red Ball Express trucking, Army trucking outfit. They came in, and because the Red Ball Express was a separate unit for whatever area they were in, First Army front, and so they would bring supplies up. So they had their plenty of trucks, and so we loaded these PWs into the trucks, and then I'd have all their papers and drive to the closest small village in Germany and get the mayor and the city, whatever city officials were around, because there's very few German men around all summer, because most of them had been in the army and they were all prisoners. So the women, you see the women plowing the fields, and the horses and cows were all killed, and so they'd have 2 women pulling the plow and one guiding it. So it was very interesting. And so that was pretty much it. And then we then I was the division went home, and those that didn't have enough high points, we went to what they call the cigarette camps on the coast of France, waiting to get on ships to go over to Japan to fight the war over there. But then August, VJ Day was, I think that was August 6th. By that time, that war ended, so then we waited around for, it took me another 6-8 months before I got home. So I was over in Europe for 2.5 to almost 3 years totally. Finally got home.
When you were in combat, what did you feel as you were like going into it?
Oh, I was actually when you first go in, you don't know what you're doing, but if you're not wounded or killed right away, you learn quick. And I found it, I wasn't nervous about it, or well, everybody's nervous. You're on guard. I mean, it's a hectic life. You're living in foxholes and moving here and there and hoping you're going to have enough K rations every day. But it was, I don't know, it just seemed like that's the way to live life.
What did you do to pass the time when you weren't in combat?
Just sit around and talk and try to figure out how is the best way to beat the Germans, I guess.
What was the food like?
Mostly K rations, and you could heat up the coffee or broth over a little fire, but you had to be careful lighting fires, because that would attract German gunfire. But most of the time you ate them cold, but you could, if you were far enough back from the line, you could heat them up at a little fire in your canteen cup and eat them.
What was a K ration? I don't know what that is.
Well, it's pre-packaged food. It's a package about like that. And it had a little envelope of coffee, and it'd have a meal of some sort. You know, it might be 3 or 4 different kind of meals that they pack together, and you could eat them. You could eat them cold, or if you had a chance, you could eat them up. And that was pretty much it. And sometimes the regimental cooks could get in close enough, and then you could go back and have a meal if things were pretty quiet. Because a lot of times things are quiet on the line. You know, there's not stuff going on all the time. You know, you just got you go out. You go out and patrol in the daytime or the nighttime, and then you're back and you're waiting to see what's going to happen. And then artillery shells come in, and so it's. But a lot of times it's just making do with whatever's going on.
Did you make any close friendships?
Oh yeah, quite a few.
Were you able to keep in touch with your family back in the United States?
Yeah, pretty much. Although for about 2 months there wasn't any mail going out, and I wasn't getting any mail, so I didn't know too much what was happening to the family. But other than that, you usually could get your letters.
Where were you when the war ended?
I was in Germany, right on the Rhine River.
How did you feel when you learned that the war ended?
Oh, it was very exciting. Very exciting. In fact, on VE Day, I was in Brussels, Belgium. VJ Day, I was in Germany. But we were in there, and when the word came out about the Germans had surrendered, boy, that town erupted because Belgium took a real beating during the war. Because that's where the Battle of the Bulge was, and there was all kinds of villages and everything gone, and cows, their livestock, you know, and everything. They really took a beating in there, and so by that time they had their electricity going half the day, you know, most of the time. And I remember we were riding around on streetcars, and we were climbing up the top of the roof and riding up and down the street, everybody screaming and hollering. That was a big night.
Where did you go following the conclusion of the war?
Went back to the United States and got discharged and went back home to Detroit, Michigan.
What was it like returning home?
Oh, got to see all your friends that you grew up with in high school and that you knew when you were growing up, and most of the guys, we were all signed up to go to universities, and that was a great time, great fun, wonderful.
Was it difficult to return to normal life?
No, not really.
Did the war affect your personality?
Oh, probably. I don't think it did. Maybe it made me more confident about taking care of myself, but it didn't leave me with any fears or irrational ideas about how to live and so on like that. So, it really did.
What was your career following the war?
I went to University of Detroit, went to law school, and then went to work for Lawyers Title Insurance Corporation.
Was your career choice influenced by your military experience?
No, not really, because when I was first 2 years at the University of Detroit, I was wondering, what am I going to do? And a couple of friends said they were thinking about going to law school. I said, well, are we going to sign up for law school? I said, yeah, that sounds okay. So we did.
Looking back, what are your feelings concerning your military service?
I was very proud of it and glad I did it.
What's your most memorable moment involving military?
Oh, on a few occasions, seeing some close comrades killed and been under terrible fire from German artillery, and also that winter in 1944 and 45 was the coldest winter they've had in Europe in about 50 years. And living in a foxhole was about the most uncomfortable life you could lead because it was cold. And a lot of guys had got trench foot in the whole army. There was thousands of guys that's when your feet get so wet and you don't change your shoes or your socks. And of course, you can't change your shoes. But whenever I'd see a knapsack from a fallen soldier, I'd always look inside to see if they had any socks. So I always had a few extra socks. So I kept my feet as dry as possible. So I didn't. Although I got frostbite on my feet, I didn't get trench foot because that could cause you to lose your foot. So I had frostbite, and I still feel it today. My feet, when it gets cold, about 20 minutes outside, I can feel it right away. But other than that, things are good.
Anything else you want to add? I don't know. There's no more questions.
No, it was quite an experience, and I was proud I was able to serve the country and defeat the Germans.